Welcome to EMERJ TV, the podcast where the industry's most talented video and film professionals share their stories, from the directors and cinematographers to the editors, voice artists, and on-camera talent. Each episode hosted by Reginald Smith as he sits down for free-flowing conversations about how they got their start, who inspired them, and what it's really like working in production. So sit back, relax, and get ready for some behind-the-scenes conversation about production. This is EMERJ TV. EMERJ TV.
Welcome back, everybody. This is part 2 of my conversation with Patrice Bridges. Again, she's an actress. If you haven't seen the first part 1 of this, then I recommend you go back and you'll see exactly who she is. But I'd like to just continue our conversation. I would like to talk to you about the time that we worked together. I was director. I was hired a director at a church. Mm-hmm. And the responsibility was, well, when I got the job, my pep talk was we expected to improve.
Okay.
So I talked to my boss at the time, and I said, well, is anybody here happy with the TV department? And she said no. So that's where we left from there. So when you came, I had been there a while, and I'm trying to think. What were you doing initially when you started volunteering? Because that's what it was.
Where did I volunteer at? It wasn't the CG. It wasn't.
Because I know you didn't start on camera.
No, I didn't start on camera right off the bat. Reggie, that's a good one.
I know it's a good
what's
one.
the equipment right behind?
Remember.
Yeah, what's the equipment right behind the director?
The AV.
The AV. Yes, I started off AV. That's it.
So
AV.
I'm not gonna. I kind of want to ask you, but then I don't.
Okay, go ahead.
But at the time, I was under pressure. So what was it like? Because now you're working with another director. So
right.
We talked about this in last time. So what was it like working with that director?
Well, that particular director at that time, you were tough. You were tough. You didn't bite your tongue. You didn't hold back. But I imagine for you is that there was a job that needed to be done, and so it had to be executed. So that was your style of getting your information across to disseminate to the people in there. Like, we got a job and we've got to get it. We've got to get it done. Mm-hmm. And so with you, it was about business. So yours was definitely like a personality, A type, a perceiver, and it was about let's get this job done, and that was it.
Now I was described by one person as Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. Because before production started, they would say, I was just laughing and talking, and then when it started, then I was more all business. And when I initially started directing, I was kind of the same way. When we were setting up, I was laughing and talking, I was getting the jokes and stuff, and then when we would start, I didn't get the jokes, and my business partner, he would come and say something, and I go, what? And he said, never mind.
Right.
And so it was a matter of, trying to get the job done.
Yeah, you get
and
the
we all want to do a good job. We all want to hear that was great,
Right.
And to pull people up, and I was dealing with volunteers.
Right.
So it was people who went to the church, had jobs as who knows what, everything other than production.
Right.
And I refer to them as the gray days.
Okay.
Because, I was trying to motivate them, and I would say some things wasn't necessary. Like I would tell them, what did you just start shooting last week? And stuff like that. That wasn't necessary. But what I can say is, over the years, and you're supposed to become wiser. The older you get,
yes,
the wiser you become.
You should.
So I heard it put this way. You can't have 50-year-old wisdom at 25. You can't have 80-year-old wisdom at 50. You can't have 90-year-old wisdom at 75 because of life lessons and what you learn. And I'm not saying you don't come into the knowledge of things and you get knowledge, but when you become wiser and you think, okay, how can I approach this? Because the director I am now, going back then, it would be totally different. But the end result was the pastor of the church told me on several occasions, he said, the second most important ministry or department in this church is the TV ministry. And on the inside, my eyes got really big. Right. And I just sat there and went, really? And he said, yes, because we were opening churches in other cities. And they said, before we go to another city, we go on TV. So the first, view that they have of us is on TV. If the production isn't there, people might say, well, why do I want to go to that church? It's all jacked up, the cameras out of focus. What's up with that pastor? He moving up and down on the screen, Right. But my approach would be different because I've learned, and I am one of those people who can get wiser, like you say, you should. Right. But I remember you were there, and you came, and let me see. Basically, because of what you said, you were able to handle the person that I was at the time. Right. And I mean, like one time, I even made my wife cry one time. She was on camera, and she said the tears were just streaming down her face, and I didn't know. You only know what you know. Right. And I think that I'm a big proponent when it comes to talking to people and being able to address people, and I'm really big on communication. And so I work with all kind of personality type people. I mean, I remember, I won't name this company that I work for in the Mountain of Entertainment, but when we were filming for a major network, this man, he wouldn't speak to you. He would rather look down at the floor than acknowledge you, and he was a top man. Wow. And so one day I said, excuse me, what is on that floor that's so entertaining? Because he did not want to speak. And then eventually that broke, Now that could have got me into some trouble, because he could have probably been like, get rid of her. Yeah, no. But then he would, he'd nod and say hi, and, just an acknowledgement. But I believe that we can motivate people in so many different ways, and that we can talk to people, with love and tender kindness. And so I'm a big proponent of that. Everybody's style is different. You know what I mean? Yeah. Your style might have been like, look, what did I say? Do it, get it done. Well, And then mine might have been like, excuse me, would you be willing to da-da-da, more of an invitational type thing. So I think everybody has a different style. I think that also the mission, the vision for us, where we were working at, required for us to have a spirit of excellence, if you will. So that was expected of us to operate in 100% a spirit of excellence. Yeah. So, yeah. And then, too, with my pep talk, which was we expected to improve, well, that put the pressure on right there. Right. Exactly. And even though now, when I was a volunteer directing, I was, if you think it's possible, I was worse than that. And I thought, okay, I got to dial it back now because I'm in charge, And even in dialing it back, well, we were getting calls, like we would shoot, like during the message or whatever, and we were shooting reaction shots. And I got a call, and they called and asked me, do you do your reaction shots live or in post? And I was like, live. Everybody does it live. And I didn't even return the call because I was just assuming. Well, everybody does it live. Right. When, no, everybody doesn't. But I had the crew so tight, so together, not tight, wound up. Okay. We did it. One Thanksgiving, think it was Thanksgiving or Christmas, one of them. The norm was the pastor would come out, he'd preach, and then service over. Well, he came out and he read, and then he sat down. And I was like, what are we doing? They didn't tell me they did a play. They did a play. We covered that play from beginning to end, and we didn't miss anything. I kept saying, I said, I don't know what's coming next, but we'll get it anyway.
Go with the flow.
And that's how tight that crew was. I even had crew members who went on to have professional careers in television. And what I told them was, I told them, I said, I'm teaching you how to do this professionally. I said, you may not decide to do it.
Right.
But you will have the ability to do it.
Right.
And some of them did. Some of them
right.
went on. And from there, like I worked at another organization called the Word Network. Mm-hmm. And they hired me, and I was really unimpressed. And, they might be surprised to hear this, but because I had so many people say, we're going to do this, and we're going to have this network, and blah, blah, blah. And it had been like, 8 years, 9 years.
Right.
And so they came to me with the word, we're going to do this. And I was like, oh, yeah, yeah. And I went to the studio that they're in now, but there wasn't anything in there. And I walked through, and I was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And the guy said, this is going to be the master control. And I was just thinking to myself, yeah, 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 whatever. Well, they did it. And then they called me, and they wanted to hire me as senior editor. And I told them, I said, well, I don't do graphics. I said, you really need to hire somebody who can do graphics and animations. I said, I don't know how to do it. And I'm a director. I wasn't really interested in learning. I could edit and put it together, but I don't consider myself an editor now.
Right.
And the guy said, I want you. And I was like, you know what? I said,
excuse me.
Mm-hmm. I said, I decided, I stopped talking. I said, okay, I'm going to let him talk. We were on the phone. I said, I'm going to let him talk. And then when he gets done talking, I'm going to tell him no. Just a flat out no. And what I was thinking was, tell him no and don't call me anymore. The very last thing he said was, and you can use our equipment for your own projects.
Uh-oh. Well, we know
I
no
worked
didn't
at the
come
Word
out.
Network 7 years.
Excuse me. Yes.
That's okay.
Wow. Look at that.
But the thing about it is, you start one place, and then it takes you someplace else, or you think you don't turn down. What the Bible says, do not despise small beginnings.
That's correct.
And I ended up with Ford. We did videos for Ford Motor Company, traveled all around the world. But it started with me doing a job, doing videos, paid $250 per video.
Wow. Yep.
You don't despise small beginnings.
You cannot. You don't know. I mean, you're on this journey, you're on this path, but you don't know the doors that are going to be open along the way. And so you're just journeying along. You're trusting God, and you're walking through this thing because, look where it's landed you.
Yeah.
I mean, look where we're at right now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You have no idea where God is going to take you. You don't. He lets us know things in part, but not in its totality.
Right.
But so you know things in part, and look at you. You just, and how it's so encouraging. And look, and Reggie, I'm here to tell you, I can see your professional growth. Because I remember working under you and how it could be. But I mean, it's just like a total transformation. And you are so comfortable in what you're doing. And so it's so important that people work in their calling. This fits you. Because you are just totally comfortable in this right here. And so I can see how you've grown, how you've matured, how the wisdom just evolved into, evolved in you. And you're at the point right now where you're at, and you're just like, hey, life is great. This is good. It makes a world of difference, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Right.
And it's so much fun doing this. I was talking to somebody, and I even mentioned this on the earlier podcast. I don't have the words to describe how much fun this is. Oh, if you asked me to describe it, I couldn't.
It's not work.
And then too, another thing though, I think it's part of walking in your purpose.
It is, definitely.
Because we all have a purpose. And one thing I learned, I have 3 children, and I watched them as little kids, and I thought, like my youngest, she liked writing. She would write poems and stuff.
Right.
And I said, okay, writing is part of her purpose, if not all part of it.
Right.
And you just have to stick with it. And a lot of people, like if there might be a child that takes care of their dolls and like play nurse to a doll, and their parents might say, well, you're going to be an accountant. Look what they were doing. They were taking care of dolls.
That's
they could be
important.
A nurse or a doctor or neurosurgeon or head of thoracic surgery.
Right.
Eventually.
You've got to have the fortitude as a parent to be able to nurture that gifting in a child. Like when I go back, like I said, 5 years old, I knew that this is what I wanted to do. Now, my parents didn't necessarily have the fortitude in it because they were thinking futuristically, like, listen, you're going to have to take care of yourself. You're going to need health insurance. You're going to need to have money to sustain in this life. But, yes, I did do other things and I still do other things. But it's just something about when you're called to, all of us are called to one of the mountains out of the 7 mountains. And for you and I, it's that mountain of entertainment.
Yeah.
And that mountain of entertainment is so vast. It's so broad that, it just covers the multitude of things. And so, and it just seems like almost everything connects back to that, because if you want to use the internet, that connects back to, just almost like that mountain of entertainment. And so, yes, and when you get to your purpose, it leads you to your destiny and your wealthy place. And so you are working in that whole purpose which God created you for, and for you to operate in, and for you to flourish in that. And so, yes, kudos to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's awesome.
When my parents, when I told them I wanted to be a camera operator, and my mother said, "We don't know anybody in television," that was the extent of that conversation. And it's not a matter of she didn't care.
Right.
But, they're from the South. My father worked at Ford.
Right.
My mother was a homemaker.
Exactly.
Sometimes she did, some jobs at places, but they didn't know. And the high school I went to, the guidance counselor, you would think, now I thought, well, there are no schools in Michigan that teach video and film production. And based on what I knew, high school, 17 years old. Went to the guidance counselor. They said, well, no, the closest we can see anything is Canton, Ohio.
Wow.
And so I went to Canton, Ohio. I was going to go, and I had never been away from home. And I'm going to level with you. I was crying when I was packing to leave. I was crying when we drove. I took the test, and the tears were so thick I couldn't see the test, and I flunked the test intentionally so I could come back home.
Oh, wait a minute. You didn't stay in?
Nope. Came back home, and I said, okay. So I started selling clothes, and I was good at it. Started selling shoes.
Right.
I was good at that.
Right.
And then I decided I would take photography classes. I said, okay, if I can't do motion pictures, I'll do stills.
Smart. Made
money at that. But then one day I got bored with it, and I just sat the camera down and never used it again. And then I used to record my own. I was talked about this before, but I used to record my own 8-tracks and cassettes. So I knew how to watch my VU meters. So I didn't distort.
Wow.
The first job I got was not because I was an engineer. It was not because I had been in television. It was because I knew how not to distort.
Wow.
And I got a job. I was doing live. The first job I got, I was doing live TV, mixing and running an audio board. And I said, well, I know how to mix it, stuff like that. And it just went from there. Now, I'll say how long it was. That was as of April 22nd. That was 44 years ago.
Whoa.
Some people weren't even born. Guy that's probably helping me do this probably wasn't even born, but anyway.
Wow.
But here we are. And it's just try. All of my career has been try.
Right.
Work for Ford. Work in Madison Square Garden. Work for big pastors and auto show and, concerts. And it's just, you just try. And I did it. I was talking to somebody because I started doing audio at the church I go to. I used to do it starting out, and so I'm helping them out. And I was talking to him, and I realized, and I told him, I came to a realization. 43 years in production. That was the first audio training I had got.
Really?
I just sat down and could do it. And I just learned, you keep your mouth shut. You keep your mouth shut so people think you know what they're talking about.
Right. Yeah.
But you don't know what they're talking about, but you still keep your mouth shut.
That's right.
And then
that's
when
wisdom.
you get to somebody that you can ask, and they'll tell you later, or you eventually learn it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Wow.
But okay, so the actors. Now, this is one thing that I watched. And in acting, framing is really close. And it's like, you're talking right here. And I'll be sitting there. And so now, breath. If somebody they didn't eat right.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you deal with that?
So here's key for me. I love candy. So I've always got some candy or something. So I always extend to people like, hey, a piece of candy, want a mint or something like that. But one thing that I've always told my niece and nephew, when anybody offers you a mint, always take it. Stay on the safe side. I believe stay on the safe side and take it. Because you're right, you're working in close proximity. Your breath, you could have eaten lunch, just anything, and your breath, the freshness of it expires. Mm-hmm. And it's not smelling sweet. So then you just have to be like, okay, let me see right here. Oh, look, no, look, I got a mint in my pocket.
Well, we're not talking about clothes. So
right, okay, yeah, so we're on the safe side. But, you can, you can share that with someone.
Yeah.
So you're right. And here's another thing. I've been on sets where two actors could not stand each other. Mm-hmm. Literally could not stand each other. And they had to do a scene together. But they were very professional about it. But I could feel the tension,
really?
Between them. Absolutely.
I heard about this on one movie, but then I actually saw it in a Jimmy Cagney movie. And the scene was the guy was talking to a woman, but he was drunk. His breath smelled strong of alcohol. But they gave him an onion. And they showed him, he was eating this onion like an apple. And then he shot the scene, and she like...
Oh, my goodness. So she went into character real quick. She was like, ooh, Peppy the Pill.
And ever since then, I was like, man, I said, that's right, because, people eat garlic, and sometimes you can be talking to somebody and they have garlic and they can be standing like over there, and that garlic just kind of swim to your nose.
And I love garlic, so you have to always be careful about it because it's something that can come through your pores. You also, as an actor on the set, you have to be careful about fragrances. Wearing. I love perfume. I think it's wonderful, but I've gotten a habit of just not wearing it to certain things because. It could be offensive to some people and other people might be allergic to it or whatever, but there's just certain things that you just have to be, cognizant of when you're acting. So you do your breath, your teeth, all of those things,
Well, I thought about acting for about, in the span of my lifetime, I would say a total of about 15 minutes. And I had dreams like, I could do this and get an Academy Award, all the same thing, you think about when you want to be an actor. And I thought, it seems like it's more fun behind the camera. And, I thought about the pay and stuff like that, but it doesn't matter if you're good at what you do in front of the camera, behind the camera, okay.
You got memorization. You get these... You got to remember all that stuff. And what people fail to realize, you have to learn your lines, but you got to learn everybody else's lines because you got to know when to come in, when to stop. So you got to learn all of that. So, you might get something that's 20 pages and you might say, okay, out of the 20 pages, I only have 5. Nope, sorry. You've got to learn all of those too. And you have to develop the character. The one thing that I was taught in acting school, you write a bio about the character, who it is, so that you can develop and you can embody that character. Like where did she grow up at? What were her parents? What were their occupations?
Right.
So you're doing all of that to really embody this character. And so a lot of times people think you just get up and you just like, okay, I'm gonna just start acting. No, it's not that. It really is an art. It really is a skill. It really is a craft.
So what is your technique for learning a 20-page script, or skip it 5-page script? You still have, because you have to learn everybody's part to know when to come in. What's your technique?
I have no technique. I just go in there like the old-fashioned way and learn those lines. I mean, I've heard people say, well, all I have to do is, record it, turn it on, and I'll rememorize, everything. No, that doesn't work for me. I have to sit there and go through. And if anybody who's been to my house, you will see these big boards up in my living room, especially when I'm filming. So every time I pass through, I'll stop and say, George, what did you say? Did you say what I thought you said? So I can get into character. So I'm always, it's always in front of me. So I'm always having that. I'll even carry the script with me if I'm going someplace, so that, you might have a moment where you're not involved in something and you can read the script. So I'm old-fashioned way. I'm sitting there, like John said this to Sally, and I'm committed to remember it. Some people have some wonderful techniques, but for me, it was just the old way that we learned, and so that has just stuck with me.
So then, especially when you're doing theater.
And theater is a different beast from television and film. Theater, when you get on stage, you don't get a retake.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
You don't get a retake. So, no, you got to learn those lines. You got to learn everybody else's line. And then you have to project with your voice. You cannot do the same thing with television and film. You got to go... You got to become smaller. Stage, you're like, woo, out here. But on television and film, you gotta shrink in. And that's something that I had to learn too, because I started out doing theater, and then when I came to, they were like, whoa. And I had to learn like, okay, let me, encompass that all in.
Right.
And so, but you got to learn all of those lines. And so, you get it. You do it. But, that's for sure.
Well,
and you're developing the character, too.
Yeah.
One of the things that was really, I remember I was working with a girl and we had to cry. So that's an easy thing for me to do, is cry.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
Yeah, I can cry on the drop of the dime. And so she was like, how do you just cry like that? I was like, oh, just because I can. But I said, but I tell you what, think about something really tragic that happened in your life and begin to stir up those emotions. And she was like, okay, I am. But when the floodgates opened up on her, it really did. And I was like, now we got to try to reel her back in, because, the floodgates opened up on her. But,
Well, Patrice, I tell you, this has been a pleasure. And like all the other conversations I've had, they could just keep going on and on and on, which is why I like the idea of this podcast, because all we're talking about is our experiences. There's no pre-written questions. I don't talk about, work before, because I figure whatever we talk about, we can talk about on the podcast. It was great talking to you, and learn some new things about you, learn some interesting things about acting and what you have to do. Although I'm very impressed about that, you, like you say, you were an extra, but you were on a George Clooney movie, so hey. But anyway, what I like to say to my audience, though, is if you're interested in coming in and have a conversation, you can reach out to me by email at emerge.tv@gmail.com. You can contact me on Facebook at EMERJ TV. If you're interested in seeing any of the podcasts, you can see them in their entirety on my YouTube channel. You type in RCSMG LLC on the top line. It'll take you to my YouTube channel. You can see this podcast as well as many others. Or if you want to see some shorter clips, you go to TikTok. It's hashtag EMERJ TV or hashtag RCS Media Group or hashtag Conversation. And also for those of you who I haven't contacted yet, don't worry, I'm coming. But again, if you watch, subscribe to it, like it, tell your friends about it. And for those of you who I'll be contacting, you'll be on here too. But I'd like to say I appreciate you all watching, And we look forward to seeing you next time.
You know, Reggie, I just want to say in closing to you, thank you so much for this opportunity. And more than anything, I just wish the blessings of God all over you on this opportunity. It's so good to see you walking in your purpose, your destiny, and your wealthy place. So keep up the excellent work, okay?
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you for watching EMERJ TV. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe on YouTube and follow along for short clips and exclusive content. Want to be a guest on the show? Reach out to Reginald Smith at emergtv@gmail.com. And we'll see you next time right here on EMERJ TV. This has been an RCS Media Group presentation.